From NBC News, this is Today.
This morning on Back to School Today, helping your child cope with stress, knowing the right way to handle it can be the difference in success and failure in the classroom. According to new research from the University of Chicago, Dana Points is the editor-in-chief of Parents Magazine. Dr. Gail Saltz is a Today contributor, of course, and associate professor of psychiatry at New York Presbyterian Hospital. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Great to have you back. This new study really kind of gives us a deeper sense about what's happening to our children when it comes to stress. It basically says that cortisol, which we all know is released, is a hormone that's released when we're under stress, can either be a positive or a negative depending on sort of the student's attitude, what the student is sort of expecting going into, for example, a test.
Exactly.
Isn't that right?
Basically exactly that cortisol released by the adrenal gland when you feel stressed, if you are well prepared, but you go in with a positive attitude of like, I think I'm going to do well, I can handle this, then the higher the cortisol went, the better your performance got. On the other hand, if you went in with, oh no, I don't do well at math, I don't feel good about this, and you predicted that, then the higher the cortisol went, the worse your performance on the test got.
So what this really tells us is two things. I mean, one of the things it really tells us, it seems to me, is that when we are raising very young children, Dana, we've got to really try to create the opportunity for these kids to have a positive experience when it comes to their ability to handle learning. So how do we do that?
Right. Even as young as, the first tests in the elementary school years, you can help make your child prepared, with good study habits and a good environment that's largely tech-free where they can really focus and get ready. And then you can help them understand that any individual test is not a ruling on whether they're good or bad at everything. It doesn't mean they're a good or bad person. It's just one test in a life of tests.
But you also don't want them to be in a position, I think you said this earlier, where they are being tested or put in positions that are over their heads, because that creates this kind of attitude that they may be failures. They may not be good enough or smart enough.
Exactly. You want your child to be challenged, but I think sometimes parents have the tendency to sort of put them in an area that's out of their depth.
It's sort of like you don't want to swamp them, but you do want to challenge them, because as you can see, you can help them develop this idea that there's an optimum stress. We see this in athletes, we see this in all kinds of performers, that a certain amount of stress can help you perform even better at your peak, really.
Well, so that's the other factor I was thinking about, because moving from young kids to older children who have experience with testing, have experience in school, and sometimes those experiences are very bad, and sometimes those. So then, how do we sort of help these students who are not testing well,
right,
who maybe are smarter than their testing?
Right.
How do we help them rethink their attitude so that when this cortisol rise happens, they can be more effective as in test taking and as students?
Well, first, obviously, we want to make sure that you're talking about a kid who has the ability. You know they're basically a reasonably intelligent kid. You want to make sure they're well prepared. It's not, sometimes kids say, I choked, I didn't know. Well, really, they didn't study. They really didn't prepare. So we really have to talk about somebody who has spent the time, put in the time, and you want to help your child to do the preparation ahead of time. But then there are tricks that you can help them with if they turn out to be anxious kids who are, in fact, exactly that, choking. Oh, I'm not going to make it, and then they blank out and they can't essentially retrieve the memory. So if we're talking about test taking, one thing that's really helpful is have them write down shortly before the test on a piece of paper all their negative thoughts. And basically the idea is this is offloading. You take your negative thoughts, you're literally going to put it in your pocket so it won't be in your mind. And it's very concrete, but it does work for kids. And then during the test, if they get that feeling again, it's coming back, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to make it, help them to focus, have a memory already picked out of a time they did well on a test. Those two cognitive things really help. It's been shown to help in studies to actually help them. Performance is a little bit different. So there's test taking, and then there's performance like I'm going to be watched on the field doing a sport, I'm going to be watched in a play, I'm going to be watched making a speech. If that's what you're trying to help them with, you want to help them distract themselves from the thought they're having, I'm going to screw up. And they can do that by, right before they take the speech, say, humming a tune to themselves or something that's completely other. Because, in fact, if you've rotely already memorized or already got that sports skill, you can do it as long as it's not interrupted.
It sounds like some of these suggestions you're making kind of tell us that some of our kids don't know how to relax, don't know how to get rid of the negative thoughts,
Yes.
and really sort of really almost self-love. You know, it's almost like that they talk about the record spinning in your head. You know, I'm not good enough, I can't do
Yes.
that. You know, sort of being a better friend to yourself, teaching your child to be a good friend to yourself and say, yeah, I can do it. Come on, you can do it. In other words, being your own cheerleader. How do we help our kids
I think
do
you
that?
have to start as a parent by modeling that from a very young age. You know, we as adults are often really critical of our own performance and critical of ourselves, our bodies, and all sorts of things. So you need to let your child see you in a point where you're maybe not as confident, and then see you rise above that, see you prepare, see you feel good. Maybe, you know, work on visualizing a moment when you've succeeded and share that with your child. Don't keep that inside. Don't hide that. That's a great
an
skill
excellent
to have.
point. And you can even say maybe, you know, I have been hard on myself, and you know, I don't want you to. I mean, in other words, talk about it in the open. That's a really good suggestion. Dana points. And Gail, thank you so much for these good ideas. Hopefully these will help some of our students as they move now into this school year. Thanks so much. And coming up next.